have the February.
Sorry.
No worries. So Chief Brian, are you willing to share your screen so we can all look at stuff together, or would you prefer?
Sure. Yeah, I have two screens so I can multitask.
I think I mentioned before, I have the camera on this computer, and then I have my documents on my home computer, which is behind it. So I can't, so I can try to see everything. And that's my two monitor solution, but doesn't work well for screen sharing.
All right, what do you want to go with first?
Let's start with the minutes from February, just so we can reacquaint ourselves with those.
Let's see. Share, host disabled participant screen sharing. Host has to enable participant screen sharing.
Okay, let me work on that one here.
Okay, and while he does that, I'm looking at number 2, update from Town Manager Robert Grimm. This is from the February minutes. Town Council has received requests about hiring additional officers. Hiring of additional officers is on the agenda for the February 28th Town Council meeting. Town Council must approve to hire additional officers before moving forward. So I joined the Town Council meeting. I forget must have been February 28th, but there was a lot of talk about the ordinance. I don't remember them specifically talking about hiring officers and giving us the green light to do that. Or maybe that wasn't appropriate, like the timing wasn't appropriate for that, perhaps, because they wanted to get the ordinance settled first. I don't know. Any thoughts, Chief Hawk, on that?
I apologize, Amy. Were you asking basically where we're at if council's given the okay to hire?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's tied. Sorry, I asked you a question when you were trying to get the, the technology worked out. It's like difficult to do two things at once, but is the permission to hire or the approval to hire contingent upon getting the ordinance approved, I guess would be is a different way to state the question.
I follow what you're asking, and I can research that and maybe touch base with Bob and see for sure whether or not they have to be, one after the other, or if we can go ahead and advertise in anticipation. Falco might have an opinion here, and I'm going to guess that maybe we have to have that nailed down and finalized before we offer a test to candidates. I'm not certain, but I'll certainly research it.
Yeah, I think especially since we're revising eligibility requirements, it would probably make better sense to wait until all those issues are resolved.
Okay. I get it. I don't love the answer, but I get it. And then Bob had said wait, let me go back to the email because I don't want to misquote him. There was a change made regarding number of years per term. We talked about that last time for the personnel board. So we needed to re-advertise, and we'll be holding another public hearing on the 28th. So I'm guessing that's March 28th, and he expects that council will adopt the ordinance on April 11th. So Chief Hawk, if you wouldn't mind just following up with Bob to ask if when they adopt the ordinance, could they also perhaps adopt the approval to hire? Again, I'm not sure if those things are one and the same, or if they go hand in hand, but I just feel like we're pushing this out to get all these changes made. It keeps kind of getting delayed because of the changes to the board composition, which I guess has some impact on, but shouldn't necessarily prevent us from starting the hiring process.
Gotcha, and I'm working on a quick email to Bob right now about it, Amy. Okay,
thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so sorry, going back to the minutes. Are you able to share yet, Brian?
Give it a try, Brian. I altered settings.
Try. Oh, yeah, it looks like it. Share. Okay, so we were doing minutes. Let's see, agenda minutes here.
Okay. So, yep, thank you. Okay, could you scroll down?
Menus were colliding with each other.
Okay, any updates or changes to the minutes? Okay, I motion to approve the minutes.
Second,
All right, all in favor, aye.
aye.
Aye. All right, Mark, you will be our, since Matt Shipley is not here today, you will be our third voting member, serving as our alternate today.
Okay,
Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry, Matt, other Matt is on and he has more tenure. We talked about this last time, so I take that back.
all right, going back on mute.
Not
He-
that we
he-
don't want you to participate.
He did log in first. I mean, I'll put that out.
Who, Matt Shipley?
Mark.
Oh,
Hey, Mark.
yeah. Got it. All right, so moving forward on the agenda, sorry, let me get to that. Okay, so continuation on discussion of qualifications. So there was a follow-up action item from last time to look at previous advertisements, since that would be the first step once we get approval from council to move forward. So Chief Hawk had sent us a couple of advertisements. One was from the last time that McCandless advertised for an opening, and the other one, I believe, was from Northern Regional. So if you guys want to just take a look at those. Ryan, if you don't mind sharing that.
Oh, the ad, here's the ad.
Thank you. So this was 2017. As Falco mentioned, at least one of the qualifications, their age would change if the ordinance passes. So I guess we do have to wait now that I think of it that way. Oh, and we actually say the score at the bottom. That's interesting. I guess I hadn't realized that that was a practice. Okay. Any comments on this one? Maybe we should look at this in comparison to the Northern Regional one, but any comments or questions on this one before we flip over?
There's no mention here. I'm not as quick of a reader as you all probably are, but I don't see anything here about military service. I did see it on the other Northern Regional one, as I recall. I looked at it like a month ago,
Yeah,
but in general, I like it.
It talks about, it might talk about veterans preference in there. That it might touch lightly somewhere there. June says she sees it in our ad.
yep, it's right above where Brian's cursor is. Yep,
Yeah, I told you it was at the bottom. I'm not as quick of a reader.
sorry. Oh, and then here's something we haven't talked about in a long time, the application fee of $50. Is that still a practice that we are asking them to pay the application fee, or other departments doing that? Is there a reason to not do that? We talked about that probably 2 years ago, but not recently.
I can easily get an answer for you guys and send it out in an email. I believe it is still a practice, Amy, but it's something that, could be discussed whether or not it's changed, lowered, or done away with altogether to encourage more applicants, perhaps.
Mhm.
I believe that fee probably goes into a, line item for the town to maybe recoup the costs of the tests and whatnot. It's, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm going to guess those tests are at least $50 a piece. They might be more like 100. I think the promotional ones were $100 a piece. So might help defray some of the costs, but it also could encourage more people to take the test maybe if you consider getting rid of it.
Yeah, I don't have any strong feelings either way. Obviously it's not a practice that I'm familiar with. It's not used in the nonprofit or the corporate worlds, but if it's common practice everywhere else in municipalities, then I don't have issue with it. I was just not wanting to take that for granted. I certainly wouldn't want that to be a reason someone didn't apply, and perhaps it makes it more likely that the applicants will be serious about their application.
I'd agree if anyone cares to know my opinion. And yeah, it has been practice for as long as I've been in this line of work to charge, and 50 seems to be the going rate.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have thoughts? I'm inclined to keep it as is then, but Matt, Brian, Mark, any thoughts on that?
Same as the chief said, it's been that practice for a long, long time, and I can see the reason for it, making sure people are serious, not just take tests and help the township recoup some of the cost.
Okay. All right. Brian, if you wouldn't mind bringing up the other one. I keep forgetting the name of that, Northern Regional.
And they prominently feature the salary,
Mm-hmm.
which we didn't put in. We did put in the cost though.
What would our number be here, Chief Hawk? Top patrolman salary. Or maybe a better question is that something we would want to advertise?
Agencies typically, Matt, Lucas, you jump in and tell me what you know.
I've seen it a lot more common to advertise salary. It's not a hidden number. It's a public information number of what the officers make. So if anything, it could be something that attracts applicants if they see a salary that they're like, oh yeah, that's definitely worth going after.
It's interesting the way they put the top patrolman salary. So that's the person who makes the most. And I imagine that's based on tenure and maybe other factors versus
Actually, Amy, most departments start off at 70% of base. So as a new patrolman, you start 70%, and then you start to work slowly up to full pay. So top rate is that 100% of your base salary. So all the officers are paid the same. It can vary by overtime, court time, stuff like that. But that's, I believe, what the difference is.
Oh, so the longer you stay, the more you get paid doesn't apply?
Correct.
Interesting. Did not know that.
For the town, just for you folks as information, our base salary, it looks like in 22, is a pinch over 50%. So it's a little lower than, like Matt said, the 70%. That's probably more almost standard. But it takes officers in McCandless, it's a gradual step every year. They go up to the point, I think, whenever they hit 5 or 6 years here, they finally reach top pay. And that's been negotiated in the contract that way. So it takes them, like I said, greater than 5 years is the way the language in the contract says, is when they hit their top salary.
And what is that?
In 2022, the beginning salary, according to this contract I'm looking at, is a pinch over 57,000. A top rate patrolman, like I said, probably 6 or more years experience here, is almost 105. It's kissing 105,000.
Well, I think we should advertise that. I don't know. What do other people think?
I agree.
I agree.
The winner.
Yeah. It's higher than Northern Regional. I mean, I don't have a lot of points of comparison, but that seems something that would be attractive to people. Um, and we could maybe phrase it the way they phrased it here without all the detail about how many years it takes. Like that might be a little too much kind of into the weeds, but okay. So they also put the website at which people can download a copy of the application, which I think is good because we much prefer electronic versus paper, I'm guessing. And an address where they can be emailed. Oh, and they advertise the date of the physical agility test. And so they do them simultaneously. That's interesting. And they charge $50.
Oh, they do
So
simultaneously, yeah. That's what
it look,
you guys talked about doing that maybe in the future for.
yeah. Well, and it's one, show up for this one day, you get both tests done, and then so is there no, I guess if you've submitted the application and paid the fee, you go right to the test. Assuming the application is complete, you go right to the testing because they've got received by the 23rd, testing 5 days later. But yeah. The other thing I'm noticing here up above is must possess current Act 120 certification, be enrolled in the Act 120 program, or have equivalent training. I think the way our ordinance is currently written, we could use the similar verbiage there. So in general, do we like this format that Northern Regional is using?
I mean, this one's easier to read. The other one was just like, let's squeeze as much text as we possibly can into the smallest possible space. And this one has like nice little bullet points and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that because one was an email and the other one was print from a newspaper ad?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Probably. Yeah.
This is the internal document they use.
And they've probably got it down pat. I'll say that, folks. They test it probably once a year. It seems like, if not more often.
Well, and I'm guessing this is the content they would put on a website. I mean, I don't know how many people are actually going to look at our ad in the newspaper. Maybe they will. Who knows? But I'm guessing the website or other online sources would be more popular now. Okay, so I imagine Denise could probably help us translate whatever the approved ordinance is into this kind of format.
Amy, that brings up a good question, though. How are we? Because you're right. Who gets a newspaper anymore? I haven't read a newspaper in 5 years. How are we promoting this, or where are we advertising this? I mean,
Yeah.
It's not, is it the Post-Gazette? I mean,
No, that's a good question. We touched on that briefly in the last meeting, and certainly there are. Chief Hawk was going to look into. Sorry, I can't think of the associations. Certainly at the training school, and yes, Post Gazette would be one source, but we would put it on our website. There would be other, like we talked about, looking at publications like police-oriented publications, in particular those targeting women or people of color or other types of not necessarily publications, but other like industry kind of associations, I guess, for lack of a better term. And I'm not familiar with what those are, but I imagine, Chief, if you reach out to your counterpart in Northern Regional, they probably have a list of, here's the 10 places we put this ad out.
Yeah, we'll absolutely do that, Amy. And I know off the top of my head, like Western PA Chiefs of Police Association, there's probably a way I can get it to them and they can blast it out there. The Allegheny County Chiefs of Police, there's a thing called the SPIN Network. It's an intelligence network through email that was established years ago by Ross Township. That hits police departments all over the area. So word of mouth can spread. I can have it put out on that SPIN network as well. I know Mr. Grimm had an idea or two of some publications that might reach minorities and such. So we're certainly going to have places that we'll explore, and I'll definitely talk to Chief Cecilia, Northern Regional, to find out what any we might not be considering that they've utilized. Although
I would think colleges and universities would be a good target market, right? Because we're looking for college graduates. So how do we target University of Pitt and the other 48 colleges that are within, 50 square mile or 50, not 50 square miles, 50 mile radius of downtown. That seems to be a good target market, because if you ask any, college student or anybody in their 20s and probably their 30s, and I'm in my 50s, I haven't read the Post-Gazette. I'm not kidding, in 5 years. I used to read it every day. Now I never look at it. So, but anyway, I'm thinking colleges and universities would be a good target.
absolutely. Police academies, Allegheny County right here. I know IUP runs one as well, and I'm sure there are other local universities and colleges that have that too, where, like you said, Mark, besides the students currently enrolled in university, you could also catch the ones that are in this line of work. Obviously, you want to get them too. They're the ones that are coming out, or soon to come out trained and ready to go.
Yeah. Do we do anything else around recruit? Like, I know we did something in the fall where I think Amy was part of it, and I think someone else on our team was part of that group, where they come in and get a day in the field and get to experience life as a police officer, or kind of have discussions with other members of the McCandless Police team to kind of understand what it's like to be a police officer. Is it way as a recruitment tool?
We did last fall, and the plan would be to run it annually. My plan is to roll it out again this year, and every year that we think that, we get enough interest. It's the Citizens Academy, I think is what you're talking about, Mark.
Yeah.
And it was it 8 weeks? One night a week for 8 weeks.
Okay.
And that was great. And I definitely think we should continue that. And I don't think that the main purpose of that was necessarily recruitment. So perhaps that's another idea for, a half day on a weekend kind of thing, like come and meet the McCandless police officers if you're potentially interested in a career in the police field. I know we did the youth, we participated with a few other local departments in the program for younger teens that wouldn't be our target audience yet, but kind of lining that up for future interest. I don't know if we had any participants in that, but so we have, the citizens, and then we have the younger people, getting them interested. We don't necessarily have, hey, you're in college or you're determining what you want to do with your career. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
And Amy, you mentioned the Times Square Jumbotron, didn't you, last month?
Yeah, last time, yeah.
It's been a long time since I've been to college. Do they still do job fairs?
Yeah, I know Pitt does, because that's where I went. I still get, they kind of give you the updates on what they're doing at school, and they still do them. Yeah.
We could try to identify, see if there's any universities that are advertising or offering for such a thing. Back in the day at IUP, they offered them, but I couldn't speak. I'm assuming if Pitt's still doing them, the other ones are.
Yeah.
How that looked during COVID, I'm not sure.
I know they did it because I saw an email recently, but yeah, I don't know. But that's also, I know the academy was supposed to be informational, and was also hopefully, if there was, what was it, 18 and older, you could do the academy, or 17 and older.
Yeah.
The goal was to shed light on, the department, and give more information on, what, the job and what, the department does here. But, even with Coffee with Cops, it's an informational thing we try to do. Maybe you do something like that again, where you kind of like host something at like another coffee shop and do it on a Saturday and see what you can get.
Yeah. I mean, we're open to anything, any like meet and greet would be a great idea somehow. We've done a couple Coffee with Cops, but it's been pretty stagnant since COVID really hit. We started hitting the ground running, and then we got COVID kind of shut that down.
Chief Hawk, quick question for you.
Sure.
And we can move on if you want. Is it a calling, in your opinion? I don't want to get, too crazy, but I mean, is what you and what Matt and others serve the public and put your life on the line? I mean, is it a calling that you guys have?
I believe so, Mark. I follow what you're asking, and I don't want to speak for Matt, but for me, I believe it was. I was going through school and kind of aimless and tried about 2 or 3 different majors, and actually a friend of mine, talked about it, and I immediately I was like, oh yeah, that sounds very interesting to me, and I don't know what it was, but I was drawn to being able to be out there on a daily basis trying to make the community better, to help people in need. And I think to this day, 20 some years later, I'd be out there in a patrol car trying to, make somebody's, help them in their greatest time of need kind of thing.
Yeah. So I think that was the answer I was expecting, to be honest with you. And I think that what you just said tells me that we are not necessarily recruiting in the normal way that we would recruit an employee, right? It's a different recruitment process. You are the people that want to become police officers and serve the town of McCandless are going to be different than me recruiting someone to come become a sales guy at Highmark, right? It's just a different process that they're going through.
Certainly.
Anyway, that's just kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, no, I think that's an insightful comment, Mark. Are we going to change someone's mind who's in college about what they want to be? Maybe, but more likely we're looking for people who are already headed down that path or already in that career, and they want to come work for McCandless because McCandless offers better benefits or a different value proposition than the town or city they're currently in.
Maybe we can advertise in the break room at the Northern Regional Police.
Oh, that's
It wouldn't be
hilarious.
the only local department I would probably advertise in. Yeah, I think we could probably draw from different ones.
Yeah, I think our pay is fairly competitive. I mean, I haven't done any kind of compensation overview of, but just hearing you say 105 maximum, Northern Regional's got 98, and there's other factors other than pay that would attract people, but that's certainly important.
Yeah, I think, Amy, I couldn't give you a ranking locally, obviously, but from what I've seen, one just came out a day or two ago, and I'll try to track it down in the South Hills. They definitely have, they're above us. So we're kind of, I think locally, and I don't want to sound probably middle of the pack, middle of the road. And I'm not Blinken and I, they're well compensated, but so we definitely would be able to attract from certain other agencies, but like an example, they've been, as long as I've been in here, I think Matt would back me up, Monroeville Police. I don't know where they're at, but they have been the highest for ever. They make a decent wage out there. And of course it sounds like they're busy and getting busier.
Yeah, I think them and White Oak might be like neck and neck.
There you go. White Oak. I forgot about them. I don't know what the salaries look like there, but they've always historically kind of been at the top lead dogs.
Interesting.
This may sound so old school, but you know how Starbucks, I don't know if they still have them, I'd have to ask, but they have these community boards where you can post what's going on. I don't know, every Starbucks I always see, there's always a cop car or two outside. They're going in and get coffee. You could always put up a posting at different Starbucks,
An advertisement.
just advertisement. I think even, I know when I was down the Strip District at a coffee shop last summer, there was police officers staying there, I told you, and I just started talking to them and they were so receptive, and they were over, what's Stanton Avenue, that area?
Probably zone
5, I think it was. Anyhow,
city, yeah.
two great officers I was talking to, and the one was actually really interested. She was probably like 58, but anyhow, she was kind of giving me all of her information and she was pretty interested. But my whole point is, heck, if you print out flyers, I'll take them, hang them up and go all around. I would definitely go down to the strip district coffee shops because and I asked them, they're like, oh, we just come down here and coffee and then we go back to, you know, our shift. But I think, you know, going around hitting up the coffee shops could be a good idea. And I'll do that for you guys.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. I wanted to suggest there's you may have seen the coffee for charity thing at Convive where they have like,
Yeah.
you know, coffee. You can have a free, you buy basically a cup of coffee for some unnamed person and you put it up on this bulletin board with a message that says, you know, for a nurse or like for somebody who wants to be a police person, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Those are fantastic ideas. I mean, you know, if there's any way to be, I mean, maybe not innovative is not the right word, but
It's like
you know,
grassroots and just, you know,
out of the box,
yeah.
great ideas.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully our officers will do that. I mean, I'm sure we will all happily spread the word in written and verbal formats, but hopefully our officers like working here and would do the same, you know, just tell their friends, tell other people that they know, you know, help us recruit. So maybe you have to ask them specifically like, hey, we don't have an employee referral bonus. However, help us recruit people you know, other officers you'd like to work with.
Right. It's a great community. And I think that the police department's turning some, you know, maybe, you know, beginning to change things. You know, we're doing the Citizens Academy and the coffee with the cops and, you know, doing different new things here that I would like to think that the officers would spread to other agencies and, you know, people they know that might want to get into the line of work that, hey, we're, you know, like I said, I don't want to use the word innovative, but we're trying new things here. You know, we're trying to roll some new stuff out, reimagine, you know, certain aspects. So I would hope that would translate, maybe speak to the, you know, the younger generation that you know, that's out there looking to catch on somewhere.
Mm-hmm. And that brings up another idea. All of the members of the Citizens Police Academy were like, we want to get involved. Tell us what we can do to help. So let's send it to them and have them spread the word.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. That is a really good idea.
Yeah, I like that.
Yep. That's easy enough to do when we get there and hopefully very soon.
Yeah. So maybe as a intermediate step, I know it hasn't passed, but and I'd be happy to help, but Denise could potentially look at what's here and sort of take our content and kind of plug it in and come up with a draft, and we could tweak that just so that we're working on that, assuming that it will get approved at, I think Bob said the April, whatever the April meeting date is.
Yeah, Amy, he actually replied to me already that says we plan to approve on April 11th. We can send everything the next day. So I guess he's planning on moving forward as soon as we get the okay.
Oh, good. Okay. Good. All right. Any other comments on the advertisement?
I'll share Northern Regionals, this ad with Denise so that whenever we have all the specifics and we can use this format. And in the meantime, I'll also talk to Chief Cecilia and see, like I said, where else how they're advertising it everywhere.
Okay, perfect. And then if we could turn, sort of going in time order here, if we could turn to the application, I think would be the next step, because we would have to have that ready at the same time as we have the advertisement ready. So Brian had some edits from the last meeting, which I think are incorporated in this version. Yes, I see your initials there. Okay, so we scroll through. I don't think we made many changes other than in some of the job description parts. And I think everyone here at this meeting was here last meeting. So if you keep scrolling, Brian. Okay.
There was one, so, all right, so on this one, the conviction of a crime section, I mean, they're pending changes, but there was a proposed change to add background investigation associated with civil litigation also. So we should have that somewhere on here. I'm not sure what section, whether we broaden this conviction of a crime or involvement in civil litigation, or whether we have a separate civil litigation section. I don't think it necessarily matters, but just to be consistent with the background changes, seems like we should add that.
When you say, was that discussed at the town council meeting? I think I remember that discussion.
Well, it was in our draft. The background was expanded to include civil litigation.
Hold on, let me look at what Falco sent. That was in the draft that he edited based on the town council meeting.
Oh, no, that was in our first edit. That was in our, the one that we sent out initially included that.
Right. Yeah, you introduced me.
Sorry, I'm trying to, the draft of this application that we sent to whom?
No, I'm sorry. The draft of the ordinance that that you and Falco generated that started the discussions about the finalized ordinance. So
Okay. Would you mind pulling that up? Just, I'm looking at it on my screen, but I'm not seeing it. And I do remember the council members talking about potentially adding that, but I don't know that there was consensus on
Wait.
that.
Adding what part? Because I didn't bring my notes.
Civil suits, is that what you said, Brian?
Right.
No, I thought we said we weren't.
Would have been 2 meetings ago, not Mondays, but 2 weeks before that, right?
can
And I
check
do
that.
believe there was definitely discussion about it.
I thought
We
said
could
no.
probably pull it up if someone needed to. I know that Mrs. Zachary brought it up, and I feel like other members made a
No,
point.
we actually, I think we all, did they have like a nod or something on that? I'm trying to remember if we did a nod, but I think that it was like 4 or 5 that said no.
Here we go. Here, it's right here. It's very straightforward. Records of all civil or ethical complaints made against a law enforcement officer. This is in the draft that he sent. This is not an edit.
Yeah, let me call Jack.
This is the Falco draft.
Thought it wasn't.
Okay.
And that's not new. That would have been in there.
This is old. Yeah, this is ancient.
So,
What, excuse me, what section is that you're referring to?
This is,
Oh,
I mean,
excuse
these
me, I
are
see it now.
changes. These are the draft changes, but they're not new changes and they're not edited by anybody. This is, let's see. This,
Yeah, I see it now. It's under that G3.
2032 G3. Yeah.
Yes. And that language would have been taken from the new act, the Act 57.
okay. Oh, I see. That's why I don't remember discussing it, but if it's part of Act 57, then it is what it is. Okay. So, well, so that's a good point. So what else from that would have changed in the ordinance from Act 57 needs to be reflected on the application? Or maybe said differently, are there items here on the ordinance that have resulted from Act 57 changes that we don't have?
Oh, yeah, gotcha. Okay.
On the application?
Okay, bye. Okay, so
Maybe.
it was, so our attorney actually told us not to include that in there. Jack reminded me, he's like, you can have a civil suit for a hamburger or something, but he said council said not to include it. Sorry, I was just trying to figure that out.
No, that's fine.
I
And
do
well,
remember that from,
Go ahead, Falco.
I'm sorry, I do remember that from the discussions at the town council meeting as well. I viewed that excerpt that Bob Grimm had sent me. I can't recall though, was that in relation specifically to what was referred to as a criminal, excuse me, a civil conviction or a civil judgment? Or just the civil proceedings themselves?
I don't know if we got into all those nitty gritties, but I just thought it was no. I mean, I can call Jack back again, but I think it was just no to any civil, any background checks or anything.
Well, and Carolyn, apparently the verbiage that's in the ordinance now, under section 203 of applications, subsection 2, and then G, no wait, is it G? Yes, G.
Yeah.
Has that because it was part of Act 57. So if you look at the bottom, I don't know if you can see the bottom of the screen that Brian's sharing here. So it was included in Act 57. So if we're required to review, well, not we as a personnel board, but if whoever's performing the background check is required to review that, then maybe we do need to put, have you had criminal charges filed? Question on the application. Have you had civil or ethical complaints? Or I don't know a lot about Act 57. Like, would this information be in there? This is for existing officers coming from other departments, right, Chief Hawk? So would that be in their personnel jacket, for example?
It should show up if as part of a background with the previous agency, or whenever you're doing that check. Also now, I think it's also part Act 57. I am required to reach out to the Commonwealth, to MOPEC, and they are keeping records now of anything, reasons why officers might be separated from agencies, and request any reports from them. They're gonna, they're keeping a, I don't know what you want to call it, a database now for officers who, if they've, whether they just retired from one agency and maybe want to join another one, they'll tell me that whenever. So I'll ask them when we have a potential hire in front of us where we think this person's made it to a point in the process where we're going to consider hiring them. I have to talk to the MOPEC, the MPO ETC, and find out if there's anything, any records, and they'll provide those to me since I'm requesting it, I guess, as chief of police. So they should have records from previous agencies, but we will also reach out to the agencies themselves too and do a thorough background check. That things like that should show up. As far as the civil aspect, I'm sure there are ways to research whether or not there are civil judgments and such, so that we're in compliance with Act 57. We do our homework and identify anything that's out there.
Okay, so as it relates to the separation records, including these items, we would get that from their current employer. So I'm back to, we probably don't need that on the application because that's coming from their current employer. We wouldn't need them to list all of these items on the application.
I'll have to take a closer look at our application, but there might be part in there where they ask about criminal charges, where officers are supposed to, potential hires are supposed to put that on the app. At least whenever I filled it out, granted that was quite some time ago, there was where you had to list any, well, at least criminal charges that might have been, including like traffic tickets. So
Okay.
Yeah, ours
it might be on there.
ours has that as well.
Okay. So should we leave that in your hands then, Chief Hawk, that you'll make sure that the application captures all the information you would need to fulfill the
Act 57 requirements?
yes, thank you.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Let's go back to the application then. Brian, would you mind sharing the application? All right. Okay, scroll down, please. Oh yeah, sorry, there was, have you ever been convicted of crime, misdemeanor, et cetera? I saw that section up there, but if we need to add more, you could potentially add more verbiage
So-
there.
Yeah, because it looks like, well, I mean, the point, the point is, for the purpose of the application, whether the person is honest and forthright about their background. That's not really asking whether we can get the information from some other mechanism. So the application is a signed affidavit that attests to the person's background. And the opportunity is, if you have the person basically not fully reflect their background, that's a justifiable red flag. That's the basic idea of putting that civil thing on the application. Anyhow,
I would think that would be like an automatic disqualifier too, if you found something that someone didn't disclose.
Mm,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
I will say, I don't know how we found this out. You might remember, but 4 years ago, when we were going through this process, during the process, we found out one of the female applicants had literally been sleeping with like numerous officers in the department. I don't know how we found this out, but it was reported back to council at the time. We're like, oh my gosh. So stuff will come up. I don't know how, but it did. And I remember we were all like, okay, take her off, you know. So stuff will come out.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, this stuff.
That misdemeanor.
What was that question, Mark? I'm sorry.
I said, was that a misdemeanor?
We'd have to get Chief DeSanti in here to speak to that one. I'm not too familiar with that one, but
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
she was here.
Hold on, let me move. So it says show Act 120 certification here, and we were saying that they could be in the process of, I think, I'm trying to find it in the ordinance, but I think we were saying they could be in the process of receiving their Act 120, that it didn't have to be done necessarily. So I can't find the verbiage.
that was not a decision that we made to include the option. It was a decision to allow the option, right? So it was anticipating the possibility of a future decision to allow that possibility. I mean, so we didn't say we were going to let them not have it, right? It was just imagining the possibility of some future circumstance where we might want to.
Yeah, I see that it is still written in the suggested ordinance, be a person who has successfully completed a basic police training course in conformity with current law, PA, formerly PA Act 120, and commits to taking, so it was the MPO ETC that was the potential future data thing. So, okay. All right. So this is good as is. Okay. Scroll down if you would. Okay, I think this is pretty straightforward. And Chief Hawk, I don't know who you would have, maybe one of the detectives doing the background checks, but I would think you'd want to ask them if they weren't here in 2017 when we did this process before, is there any information they would want to get up front so they're not having to spend time following up with people afterwards that they would need for the background check?
I can absolutely ask them if there's anything that stands out to those two, our two detectives that, you know, like you said, should come first
Yeah,
at the, you know, off the top of my head, you know, what we've already discussed, you know, we'd have to explore any criminal charges that they, you know, might claim they have, because those would be some, depending on what it is, you know, or the severity of it and the disposition could disqualify somebody, you know, pretty quickly.
hmm
And I'll talk to the two, like you said, detectives that will follow up a lot of it and see if there's anything else that they can see that would stick out. You know,
okay.
you should know up front.
And then Brian had some recommendations for, I think they were all additions versus edits to the essential duties. So Brian, do you remember which ones were additions? Is it 10, 11, 13, 14?
I have a fancy way of showing this, I think. Let me see. Hang on. Markup. So here's this one's new, de-escalation of interpersonal conflicts. So then this one was just edited just to clarify that the trauma that was referenced previously was physical trauma, and then adding medical conditions and emotional or psychiatric disorders. Seems relatively straightforward, but pending discussion.
Okay. Thoughts on that? Well, let's start with 11. Matt L, is this, I mean, I would think this is relevant. Do you?
Yeah, like I said before, and I appreciate Brian putting specifics in. You can't enumerate every possible thing that an officer is going to have to deal with over their career. This is just a general list. This isn't going to be something that is going to be determined if they pass FTO or if they're qualified to be a police officer. So, I mean, adding to it's fine, but I don't know that it's necessary. But I would defer to the chief.
Like Matt said, you know, I don't think it can hurt having that on there, because they're all going to, you know, an applicant's going to say they can perform them or they can't. You know, while it can't be, I think that's what Matt's saying, an all-inclusive list, it's touching on, you know, some of the basic, you know, functions or things that someone's going to be expected to do. So those items, you know, I feel like, you know, we're making them, we're putting them down. If we put them down here, we're putting them on paper, but there are things that, you know, traditionally should have already been done, kind of thing, you know. They've just given a, you know, de-escalation, you know, but I believe a professional officer who's, you know, trained and out there responding to calls should have been doing these for years. But it, you know, I don't see where it can hurt us putting them on there.
Okay, well, I'm inclined to leave them then. I don't think they're, I mean, I think they're relevant.
Mhm.
These are things that officers do plus more. I think this reminds me, I think last time I had said, maybe we should add all other duties as assigned, but I think at the top, if you scroll up, Brian, it does say, like, you know, these are not, well,
We could
essential
just say
duties.
some.
Yeah. Some essential duties. Right. I guess by categorizing them as essential, we're suggesting that there's lots of other ancillary tasks that, you know, like dealing with raccoons in someone's basement. You know, my neighbor had that. Like, we're not going to list that here, but that might come up.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely wanted to add these from a perspective of, you know, if this is the list of essential duties, you know, there's things where I would object to them not being on the list of essential things. Like, it almost implies that everything that's not on the list is not essential. You know, that's the concern, right? And I like the idea of kind of, you know, clarifying this first thing, saying like, hey, yeah, here's some stuff, you know, you're gonna have to do this, but there's other stuff too.
So do we do that by adding a 17, like other duties as assigned?
Yeah, that's
or
fine too. That's fine. Yeah.
other duties as um, other duties as assigned or that may come up in the course of your day? Like, here's the catch-all category.
Not
Required.
everything's assigned.
Say it again, Caroline, I didn't hear you.
Not everything's assigned. It's just what comes up, you know,
Yeah, I mean, it's from the community almost.
exactly.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, I think we're trying to pour a lot into this document, and it's not going to be something that's going to come back and go, well, look, you didn't do this, or you don't. That's what policy's for, you know, that which policy is way more inclusive than this list. So again, I appreciate trying to add some stuff to this, but it's kind of, I don't know, it's trying to do something that it's not intended to do. That's what policy and the supervisors are going to do once the officer's hired and being trained in each day.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And I also wanted to, you know, there's kind of like this physical accommodation question, you know, and there's not even a question of, well, what if you're so incapable of, you know, working with interpersonal issues that you need an accommodation, you know what I mean? Like that's not
That's
even
where-
implied.
Yeah, that's where in the first year an officer's hired, they're at will, they're probationary. And if they get through FTO, that's because they've met all these things and the department is determined like this is going to be an officer. They can do the job. They're competent, they're qualified, they can interact, they can learn. If they can't do that, then before the end of that year, they'll be let go.
I would think too, oh gosh, I just realized what time it was. I would think also that we would want to screen for those kinds of things. Those are the interpersonal communication skills we're looking for during the interview is, you know, how can they provide examples of where they have done things like that in the past? And can they tell us more about their style of how they would do that? So, you know, and then as Matt said, if we do a poor job of interviewing, they still get hired. That would come to light sometime in the first year, you would think.
yeah, and I know on council, just from past interviews, everyone asks their own questions in different ways. And, you know, we ask for examples so I want to say that somewhere along the way, someone's going to ask a question where they're going to have to back up some of the things that they're saying. So kind of have the process.
Okay, thanks for that. All right, so let's switch to, sorry, I'm looking at the agenda. Continuation, we talked about qualifications for potential new hires, council's changes to qualifications in the hiring process. I don't know, honestly, if that's that ball is not really in our court anymore. I think that's in council's court. So Carolyn, if there's perspectives you need from us, let us know. But otherwise, I expect council to make some decisions there about the ordinance, the changes we were suggesting, the changes that then were discussed at the last meeting, and then hopefully pursuant to the public discussion, vote on that in April. And then community engagement updates. Anything there, Chief Hawk?
I believe what June listed was the Bigs in Blue. For one, we got started a couple weeks ago. It's the first time in a couple years we were able to get that program back up and running. Right now, there's three officers, myself being one of them, and one medic that are involved in the program. I mean, it's cops and basically first responders kind of acting like big brothers or big sisters. We're matched up with students from the school district that I don't know the requirements that big brothers, big sisters puts on the, you know, how the school district and them identify these students. But we did begin that. Our first meeting, like I said, was last Thursday. It's going to be every other Thursday where we meet with them at McKnight Elementary as a group and do activities and such. I'm, you know, one meeting into it. I'm looking forward to continuing it. You know, like I said, it's the first time we've done it in a couple of years. So there's that. And I think
What's the age group? Sorry, you said it was at McKnight Elementary. Is it
it
all
is.
grades?
You know, Amy, the four young boys right now that we have in the program that I met for the first time on Thursday, I'm going to put them around 9 or 10, maybe third or fourth grade.
Nice.
The director of the program, I'm not sure what standards he has set, with the district. I just know that, he knew he had 4, 3 cops and a medic. So they got 4 students that whatever their requirements are, they met. And so we've begun that. And like I said, I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
My first foray into being kind of a big brother, whatever the title is. My wife says I have 6 at home that I've got a mentor. So why not one more? It's just, but at any rate, June, did we have something else on the agenda about that?
The reading program.
Oh, yeah. We had several of our officers participate. Was it Peebles
Yeah.
Elementary School, where they went in and read books at the request of the school. They read books to, I forget what grade now, but fourth.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's another one there that we did, and the officers look forward to doing.
Yeah, my daughter's in 5th grade and she was like, I saw Joy today, but he didn't come to my class. So
Yeah, my son McLean had them in his office.
Oh, did he? In his class?
Yeah.
So that was good. I mean, they touched base with some of the students. So we're trying to roll things back out, and this is a start.
nice.
We used to have it where they would be at the schools greeting and saying hello when the kids got the bus once in a while. Do you remember that?
I mean, I remember
This
being.
was 4 years ago.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, because I met you the first time there.
Okay. I'll have to look into what brought that on, if we were just doing it or if there was a
I don't
reason, if we
know.
were requested.
Maybe, but I just thought it was neat because the kids
Yeah.
showed up and there's an officer greeting them when they got off the bus and, have a good day. And they walked into school. So I don't know. That was a while ago.
Absolutely. We could look into that again, and yeah, I would have no issue with that if we could do that something, occasionally with the schools.
Yeah, just roam around to different buildings.
Mm-hmm.
I love that idea. Then they're seeing officers not just during drills or issues, but on an everyday basis too.
I think we're also picking up on the school walkthroughs too. I know we're touching a lot on the schools, but I mean, if we're not keeping our schools safe, then,
Yeah. Oh, we talked about the technology. Remember doing an evening where
oh, yes.
having an SRO come in to talk to any parents in the community who'd want to come in and just hear an update on the impacts of social media, what to look for. I never knew, and I learned you can actually look at the phone and it will show how many times your child picked up the phone throughout the day. So it was very informative hearing about all these different settings on your phone. So if your kid's picking up the phone 344 times a day, they've got an issue. But we were talking about trying to do an evening program where Mike, who's our SRO, could, help educate and teach parents like me who are completely clueless about some of this stuff, because I know I am, what to look for and how to protect our kids and, just to, manage as much as we can to keep kids off of, the cell phones, the gadgets, and to get them outside and to play and get on bikes and stuff.
Yeah, so there was a program, was it last week? I think it was last week at the high school. Phil Little from the Attorney General's office came and did a presentation on social media. And if they had a virtual option, I wasn't aware of it, but maybe they had a virtual option. But I will tell you, there was probably 5 or 6 people in that whole auditorium. So I was surprised at how not very well attended it was. And maybe they just didn't do a good job of advertising it, because I am with you, Carolyn. I think that's a huge matter of concern for parents. And so, yeah, I think there'd be a lot of interest in that if we get the word out.
Yeah. Well, and that was our plan, to do something here. So if people want to come in person, they can, but it would also be on Zoom so they can log in. But we were discussing sometime in June,
Yep.
like that. I mean, it was just hearing the different things. I'm like, oh my gosh, I never knew this. Not that my kids have cell phones, because they don't, and I won't let them have it. Sutton still has a flip phone, which he doesn't know how to use, but that's fine. That's all you need. But I think we need to really keep connected and help parents navigate this challenging time of technology and social media and the impacts on the kids. So
Yeah.
try to work on that.
All right. So last agenda item, other business or public comments. I'm going back to the participant list. I don't I don't see other. Oh, Matt Shipley joined. Hey, Matt. We were looking at the screen, so I think I missed you joining, but I don't see anyone else from the public on. So any other business? Okay, and then my thought for the April meeting, gosh, would be to focus more on, hopefully if we need to, spend time finalizing the application or the advertisement, but hopefully by then that will have already occurred and we can focus more on the interview part of the process. So again, trying to take this in sequential order for the new hire process. Any other thoughts or comments? All right, I motion to adjourn. Any seconds?
I'll second the motion.
Matt seconds. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
You too.